After a busy day at work, it's always good to come home to a hot meal. And with just a few minutes of preparation in the morning, you can have just that. Shenoa French of the Culinary Innovation Center at NCBA is with us to talk to us about the Lazy Day beef and vegetable soup. What do you have going here?
Yeah, so what we're going to do today is we're going to use a meal it's a crock pot recipe.
Okay.
And the best thing that you can do is you set it up in the morning. We call it a dump recipe. So you open cans, kind of dump them all in there, put a lid on them, and you're out the door. Come home and do a quick couple additions, as we call it, our finishing steps, and then you have dinner on the table. Most people can translate any stew recipe or soup that you would do on the stove can be also done in a crock pot.
Perfect.
It just changes some of the timings. So we're going to start with about 2.5 pounds of stew meat. And if you want to cut stew meat yourself, you can. And right now you can go into the meat case in any grocery store and they have stew meat for you.
You bet.
So it's a quick, easy 2.5 pounds into
just
the crock pot.
Dump.
Yeah, so this will be our first one.
Okay.
That goes in. There's kind of the two sides of the house as we talk about whether you should always brown meat before you add them to the crock pot. You can. It will add some other flavor. There's a process that goes through called a Maillard reaction and some browning effect that will give you more beef flavor. If you're using chuck stew meat, you have more beef flavor in chuck than if you're using a round or something further down the animal. So if you're going to use a chuck stew meat, it's not as important, but if you're using something else, you can brown it before it would go in. Just add another step.
That's helpful to know.
So yeah, 2.5 pounds of stew meat in. We're going to go ahead and add 2 cans of low sodium. The low sodium is important of beef broth to go add in here for your moisture.
Okay, so not too much salt.
Nope, not too much salt. And the moisture in there helps with the cooking process. We're doing what's called braising. And so that's that moist heat cooking process that makes the beef tender.
Okay.
So water, we're also going to add 1 more cup of water, which will give us just a little bit more liquid, to make sure that it breaks down.
That way you're not, you have all day for that to go and you don't have to worry about it even if you're not outside or whatever.
Absolutely, yeah. So that, and then we're going to do a can of chickpeas. Drain them, obviously, before they go in. If you don't like chickpeas, you can do kidney beans, black beans. You can choose a can of beans of your choice.
Yeah, I'm not a big fan.
Yeah, make sure they're drained.
Okay.
Rinsed and drained usually.
Very good.
So that goes in.
And what, some tomatoes?
Yes, this is another can of no salt added. As you add that beef broth, that'll kind of pull in some salt. So no salt added stewed tomatoes.
All right.
You don't need to drain these because we, again, want that moisture.
Okay.
So that goes in. Our seasoning, we're going to do a teaspoon of dried Italian seasoning and then a little bit of salt and pepper.
So a little Italian flavor.
Yeah, so
then do we need these vegetables? Or?
Not yet.
Not yet.
So this all gets mixed together. Go ahead and give it a stir once so you can incorporate as you see the vegetables or the herbs are going to float on top. Give them a stir through and then go ahead and all you need to do is put the lid on and walk away. If you have
low or?
That depends. If you want it on low, that means about 8 hours.
Okay.
If you want it on high, it's about 6. So it kind of depends on how much time you have for the day or what you're doing.
Very good.
So this will cook all day long. No stirring required. When you get home, then it's called the finishing steps that we talked about earlier.
Okay.
So your beef will be tender, and that's the most important thing to check when you get home is give it a stir and go ahead and check, make sure your beef's tender in there with the fork. And then this is going to be 2 cups of frozen vegetables. So you can do a mixed blend. Here we've got, there's a little bit of green beans and peas and carrots and corn.
You bet.
So pick what you like, about 2 cups. That goes directly in here.
Okay.
So that all gets mixed into it as well.
Yeah.
And then the next step, this is kind of where you'll make a decision factor for you.
Okay.
If you have an extra hour, you would go ahead and add in, this is a cup of small pasta that's not cooked. So if you have an hour, and this is how the recipe lists it out, you would go ahead and dump this in, put the lid back on them, and then let it cook for an hour. And so what the other moisture in there is doing is cooking this pasta. If you don't want to wait an hour and your beef is tender when you get home, you're probably going to need, maybe 15-20 minutes for those vegetables. But you could boil this on the stovetop just in regular salted water. Yeah, and then dump them all together.
Dump it in, gotcha.
Yeah, so it kind of depends. This is where it gives you your variation at night when you get home.
Sure.
So if you wanted to do this, this would get dumped in there. Again, lid goes on. You can finish chores of the house or whatever you need to do, set the table. And then the last bit of it, as you serve it, you're just going to go ahead and sprinkle just a little bit of Romano or Parmesan cheese on top.
That's fantastic.
Yeah. We've part it with a a nice whole grain roll, and you have dinner.
You're ready to go. Well, what a great example of how with just a little prior preparation, you can still have a great and an economical meal for the entire family when you get home.
Absolutely. It's our version of the microwave meal because it takes about the same amount of time when you get home.
Outstanding. For more time-saving recipes and plenty of others, head to our website at cattlementocattlemen.org.